So the pasuk this in the beginning of this week's parsha, Parsha's Va'era, the pasukim say about the four different lashonot, the four different expressions of redemption. When Hashem explains to Moshe, what is he going to do with the Jewish people and how he's going to redeem them. So we know that there's no extra words in the Torah, no extra letters in the Torah, right? If it seems to be extra or missing, there's a reason for it. So if we go into the Sukkim, it says, L'chein emor livnei Yisrael, ani Hashem, v'otzesi eschem mitachas levos Mitzrayim. Hashem is telling Moshe, therefore, speak to the Bnei Yisrael, speak to the Jews, right? And tell them that I am Hashem, and I'm going to take you out from under the burdens of of Egypt. And then it says, V'itzalti eschem mi'avodasam, and I will save you from their work. And then it says, V'ga'alti eschem bizra netuya, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. And then it ends, well, partially ends, it's going to continue afterwards. V'lakachti eschem li la'am, and I'm going to take you for me as a nation. The psukim continue, and then afterwards it goes on to say, V'hivesi eschem el ha'aretz asher nasasi es yadi l'seisasa, right? That I'm going to bring you to the land that I lifted my hand, meaning Hashem swore. I lifted my hand as a shavua, as an oath, to give you that land that I promised, I swore to the your forefathers. So in these psukim, we see there are the four expressions of redemption, which from that we see that we have 4 cups of wine on Pesach, right? So, and then there's supposed to be actually a 5th cup of wine, which is vehevesi, bringing to Eretz Yisrael, because the reason is we don't drink the 5th cup of wine, we give it to
the large
Eliyahu and Navi, and therefore what happens is that because we're not in, the land actually did not, become ours completely yet. Even when they went to it in Mitzrayim, it was known that, from Mitzrayim, after the 40 years in the desert, they went to Eretz Yisrael. The thing is that they didn't end up staying there, right? So it's not a complete redemption. The complete redemption will be very soon, B'ezrat Hashem, when Mashiach comes, and therefore that's what the 5th cup is about, right? Because Eliyahu Navi is going to announce the fact that we will have Mashiach be coming within very shortly. So that's why we just have the fifth. Each expression of the redemption is another cup, and the 5th one is the final redemption. So the Nesivos Shalom says that what's going on over here is really, we have to really understand why is it that the Torah is really elaborating. What's the point of elaborating? We know what Hashem is going to do. He's going to redeem us from Mitzrayim. So all that needs to be said is that he's going to redeem us. Why is it that that he's going to take us out? He's going to save us. He's going to redeem us, and he's going to take us, and then he's going to bring us. It should be cut down, because we know everything in the Torah is for a purpose. What is the purpose of elaborating with so many different synonyms of this seemingly the same thing, right? When a person talks and he's an eloquent speaker, and he has all different expressions or synonyms to say the same thing, that's nice. It's very nice, but that's not what the Torah does. The Torah doesn't go ahead and say things that aren't relevant or aren't necessary for us to learn. If it's bringing four different, or essentially five different expressions of redemption, why is it that we have to have all five? Why not just say he's going to redeem us? That's it.
From does it show stages? Does it signify stages?
On this week's Parsha,
that they take
Hashem,
place in a little different
in this
way?
week's Parsha, Hashem is telling Moshe that this is what he's going to do.
Yeah, but there must be something unique in each one of those.
That's our
words.
question.
Yeah.
That is exactly our question.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're trying to figure out. Why is it? Because it doesn't seem.
Is this based on the Villians Torah about this?
No, this is Nesivos Shalom. Okay, so so the reason why the Torah elaborates on this and really gives a lot of detail as to not only what we're talking about right now is how Hashem speaking to Moshe and telling Moshe, what he's going to do in such an elaborate way, but not only that, also the whole expression of how we suffered in Mitzrayim and how the plagues and everything that happened, that it's all part of the same reason. And the reason is to be able to show us and to explain to us and to foretell that all the exiles that we're going throughout the millennia is all in concept, it's like a model for everything that we're, all of them were coming out of Mitzrayim. So basically, Mitzrayim was the worst out of all the exiles, right? Because of the hard work, or because of the fact that, or because of the fact that they were, there so long. All our other exiles were, not as long. It was, different parts. This last exile, of course, is a very long exile, but it's not something that we're suffering on a constant basis, like we suffered in Egypt for 210 years. So therefore, the five expressions and the whole story is telling us that really this is a preparation for us to understand that all that what's going on in Mitzrayim is really what's going on in every Jew's life, not only Jews in general for the entire millennia since we were exiled from Israel, but also each and every personal exile that we have and that we are going through, all the suffering that we're going through. So we shouldn't think of the fact that it says Hashem took us out and Hashem is going to take us out, Hashem is going to redeem us, Hashem is going to take us, Hashem is going to save us. All these things, just say, oh, it's another synonym. It's not. Each one, and we're going to go through each one to find out why is each one expressed in the way that it is. So we know that the Chazal, our sages tell us that when we were in Mitzrayim, it was like a infant or an embryo, I should say, an embryo that is inside the animal's belly. Okay, so in such a way that there's no place for him to go. He can't. He's constricted in such a way that he can't move. Okay, and so too, Bnei Yisrael, when the Jews were in Mitzrayim, they were that way. They were the same way. They were totally in such a way that they were confined, that they couldn't move. Okay, meaning any movements that they wanted to do. Okay, not what the Mitzrayim wanted to do. The Mitzrayim wanted them to do things, they had to do that, but they couldn't move on their own. Okay, um, and therefore it says, "Votsesi eschem," I will take you out, you plural out, mitachas sivlos Mitzrayim, from under the burdens of Mitzrayim. What does that mean? Because it is like we are stuck inside, so therefore it needs to be a language of pulling out, to disconnect and to uproot from our existence there in Mitzrayim. And that's why it was Vodsesi. I will take you out, right? To totally disconnect us from what we were so connected in such a way that we couldn't move. So that's Vodsesi Eschem. That explains why Hashem is saying to Moshe that I'm going to take you out. And then the next lashon that he uses is the lashon of Vitzalti Eschem, and I will save you. Okay, so the we know that the fact that we were slaves not only to the Egyptians, we were slaves to the klipa of the Jews, right? Really, the lowest of the low. They weren't just any klipa; they were a klipa of the epitome of impurity, and therefore they were only allowed to do whatever they were told by the Mitzrayim. They weren't allowed to do anything else, and therefore, not only do they need to be taken out, but they need to be saved from that part too, from being able to do things on their own, as not to go ahead and have this everything under the Egyptians, and everything we're just like robots doing what they want us to do, right? So that's why, and we know that there's a warning in the Torah after we come out of Mitzrayim. It says, "K'ma'aseh eretz Mitzrayim lo ta'asun," like the deeds, the actions of Mitzrayim that they used to do, different customs that they had, you can't do, right? We can't be like the Mitzrayim. We have to be totally the opposite of them, right? So therefore, they have to. There is a saving that they needed to be saved from that. But not only that, the third expression is that Viga'alti, and I will redeem you, right? And that is referring to the subjugation that we have. We had a subjugation under the Egyptians that was in such a way that we were so stressed that we couldn't even think. We couldn't even express in our own thoughts what we were going through, because the stress was so complicated and difficult, and therefore we needed a separate thing from that as well. Like, we're talking about different traumas, and each one was a different thing to be able to save us from that trauma, to be able to uproot us from that trauma, and bring us out healthy and not traumatized. So not only were we not able to think, even the groaning, even sighing and saying, "Oh, yeah, I can't do," we couldn't do that. Everything was so stressful that we couldn't even do that. And we do see that right before this, it says, "Vaye'anchu b'nei Yisrael min avoda," the Bnei Yisrael groaned from the work, right? Because that was the beginning of the redemption.
The
groaning, the fact that they were able to cry out to Hashem and groan, right? That in itself was the beginning of the redemption. But before that, they weren't able to think, they weren't able to cry out, they weren't able to groan. Everything was very much like they were totally subjugated. And that's why they needed to be redeemed. But all this was a preparation for the actual redemption, which was to what? To be taken by Hashem, meaning that we were still, all these things were great, but we were still, even after the 10 plagues, definitely during the plagues, we were in Mitzrayim, we were not being subjugated by them when it comes to their slavery work that they had for us, but we were still under their control. We were still in their land. We were still, servants of theirs, as in the country. So therefore, the fourth lashon, the fourth expression is v'lakachti, and I will take you, meaning I will take you as a nation, just like we know that Hashem is like the groom, and we were like the bride, right? So therefore, we know that just like we have different languages, different expressions of redemption, so too, one of the expressions of sanctifying someone as your wife is taking.
Oh,
Okay, one of
I take you to be
I
my
I
bride.
take you to be my bride. I sanctify you to be my wife. Right? Those are all things that are right, two different things, but they're one and the same. We learned that from the first time that it's mentioned, kicha, the lashon of taking as a verb. This is from Avram Avinu when he bought the field in Hebron. Okay, and we learned that the Gemara takes and understands that from that's how the same way to be able to be in holy matrimony with your wife, with your spouse. So all this is as a preparation for that part, right? And that's why it says only in that one it says bizra natuya, in an outstretched arm, right? And the other ones it doesn't say anything about an outstretched arm, but this was the completion of it, right? To be taken. I'm sorry, Vigalti, with the I will redeem you is the completion. And when it came to the taking, that was like, okay, so the engagement was until then, and the taking was like the chuppah, right? And then we come to Vavesi, I will bring you, and that's already like that is like bringing to the house, like they're going together to their own house, and they're all separate from everybody else, and that is what Hashem, when Hashem brings us from Mitzrayim through the Midbar to Eretz Yisrael, right? That was Vevesi. That was he was the fulfilling his commitment, and this is the highest level, right? That is totally marriage and bring him to the house. You had a question?
Yeah, when he says with an outstretched arm, is that like you would stretch your arm out to grab somebody else's hand and bring them with you or something?
Right. You're redeeming, you're taking.
Meaning you're not keeping your arm to yourself. You're grabbing them basically and bringing them.
Right. So meaning taking them out from everything that they were going through.
Right.
Right.
Bring them to yourself. Yeah.
Right. So and then what the Nesivos Shalom usually does, and I think almost all the time, he brings us to an understanding of how we can, whatever we learned until now, how can we bring that to a practical lesson for ourselves? And he says that all these parts of the redemption of Mitzrayim is all part of the redemption, the future redemption, and the redemption of each and every as a whole, Klal Yisrael as a whole, and also Klal Yisrael as individuals, each and every one of us. So, and if we look, we see in Yerushalmi, in Gemara and Pesachim Yerushalmi, it doesn't say the four expressions of redemption. Really, what he's saying is that there are four different redemptions, because of what we explained, how each part was something else that they had to get out of. Each part was another stage, like you were saying before. Each was a different stage, and therefore it's not just a redemption.
It's a process. It's a
right. Yeah. It's four different redemptions.
Over a period of time, yeah.
But it's four different redemptions, right?
Four different levels.
Four different levels and four different redemptions. Each one is its own redemption. So now Shabbos Shabbos brings redemption to the world. Okay? Because all the days of the week, we are like in exile. Okay? We're totally like in exile.
Toiling away.
Right? And Shabbos is the redemption. That every day of the week, each Jew is so invested and so sunk into his stress and what he needs to do during the week that and his inclinations and his dark periods, right? Then therefore he's in exile, and each one has its own levels as well. So there are some times where we have someone who is so deep down that he has no connection to Hashem throughout the whole week, right? It's totally disconnected from Hashem throughout the whole week, like the embryo in the belly of an animal that can't move, nothing. And then there's somebody who's not as bad, where he has sometimes, through his davening that he does here and there, he has a connection here, a connection there. Sometimes they do it, davening is you're under such stress throughout the week that the davening even is just by rote, and it's not really, not thinking what you're saying, what you're doing, right? So, but, so there's different levels in that as well. And that just like, we said that there's not being able to move or only doing what the Mitzrayim say, where he would be the Sitra Achra, the other side, right? Which is really a Torah concept, not, the darkness. And like we said from Star Wars, it's really a Torah concept, right? So, and then also coming to the point of not being able to think, and all these different levels. So Shabbos Kodesh takes us out of that. Shabbos Kodesh totally, when we connect to Shabbos the way we're supposed to, we're able to go out of Shabbos, to come into Shabbos as a real Jew. Like I've mentioned this numerous times because Nesivos Shalom mentioned it, that Shabbos is like, people feel like the whole week they're not a Jew. And during Shabbos, they go, like we have a Shabbos guy to help us out, right? We have a Shabbos Yid. I feel like I'm a Shabbos Jew now because during the week I'm not Jewish. I don't feel Jewish. And Shabbos I feel Jewish, and that's a concept that a lot of people unfortunately have, being stressed out all the time, right? So when a person goes into Shabbos right in the beginning, he's shaking off all the depths that he was into during the week, and he gets freed from the powers of the Sitra Achra that are surrounding him, right? And in the same way, Votsesi, I will take you out, and I will save you, and I will redeem you, and everything. And then what is the purpose of Shabbos? Is connecting and clinging to Hashem, right? That's the whole purpose of Shabbos. So, what is just like we said about stages, right? During the exile, there's also stages for the redemption of getting us out stage by stage. So too, on Shabbos, in the beginning of Shabbos, is very holy, but it's not as holy as when we continue and go further. And the end of Shabbos is the holiest, right? Shalshudas time is the holiest time of Shabbos. That it's Rava de Ravin, it's the holiest of the holy, where it's the end of the day, it's the climax of the day, it's the holiest part of the day, just like we see in Yom Kippur. The holiest part of Yom Kippur is Ne'ilah, which is the last hour of Yom Kippur. Okay, so too in Shabbos is the same thing. So we see that really there's two different parts of Shabbos, right? When we come into Shabbos, we have to know everything has to be set. We shouldn't do any melacha, we shouldn't do any creative work on Shabbos, right? And we should also do the things that we're supposed to on Shabbos, right? Having the sudos, going to tefillos, going, and being part of our kehillah, and doing things differently than we do throughout the week. So we know that Shamar v'Zachar, keeping and remembering Shabbos, are two separate things, but they were said in the same time. Meaning, if we look at the luchos that were we don't have a picture of the actual luchos, but we probably wouldn't understand it anyway in this detail, being the fact that if we see there's numerous differences when it's mentioned in Yisro, in the book of Shmos, the luchos that were written by Hashem, and then in the luchos that were written later on by Moshe, right? When he broke the first ones and he had the second ones. So they're basically the same, but there are differences, and every difference is a purpose for that. We have to learn something from it. So one of the differences, the first time, one of the times it says shamar, and then other times it says zachar. One time it says keeping Shabbos, and one time it says remembering Shabbos. Like, which one? And why doesn't it just say shamar v'zachar or zachar v'shamar? Why does it say, two separate times and one only mentioning one and the other? So I forget who I heard this shot from, but it might have been Rabbi Kamenetsky. I'm not sure, but it says that we know that keeping Shabbos, let's say somebody is able to, and it's true, you could actually keep yourself from doing any creative work on Shabbos, but you could be not really accepting upon yourself Shabbos. For example, somebody can go to work, right? Let's say his work is not out of the Tchum Shabbos and not out of the 2,000 amas away from habit, our city dwelling, right? So it's within the cities, no problem with that. Any doors need to be open, you have the secretary open for you or this and that, right? Any calls need to be made up, but it's not Shabbos, right? But you're not doing any creative work, right? But it's still not Shabbos. And then you can go ahead and do the Zachar without the Shamar. You could, have Friday night Kiddush and this and that, but meanwhile you're on your phones and you do all that. That's so you need both. You can't have one without the other. So in order not to make sure that we shouldn't think that Shamar, like we say everybody Shomer Shabbos, right? So maybe Shamar, keeping Shabbos, not doing the creative work, that's the important thing. Zachar is important too, but Shamar is more important, or vice versa. So therefore, the Torah puts it in B'dibur Echad. When Hashem said it, He said it together, meaning and we can't do that, right? There's no way we would be able to do that, to say Shamar and Zachar at the same time.
Us verbally.
To say that at the same time, we can't, right? Not only that, this shot that I heard, that it was written one on top of the other.
Mm.
So in the actual luchot, in the actual tablets that were brought down from Sinai, so it was actually written one on top of the other, which there's no way to read that, right? We can't think about it being, we can't, have that, we don't have that concept. Obviously, if we had the luchos in front of us, maybe we would be able to read it, right? Because of the way that it was done so miraculously. But the fact is that's shot over here, that Shamar and Zachar are so important. One is not more important than the other. They're both equally important, that we have to keep away from the bad and do good, right? Which is what we have to do all in life. But it's the Shabbos is what brings us to that understanding of that we have to keep from doing creative work and remembering Shabbos, doing the way we walk, the way we talk. Everything should be different on Shabbos. Our dress, our everything should be different. So therefore, that is an example for how we have to constantly be steering away from creative work or steering away from bad altogether, and doing good, right? Remembering Shabbos is the example for doing good.
Basically, it's saying you can't have one without the other.
Right, exactly.
It's a
Right.
wholeness right there.
So then there happens to be a machlokas, the Gemara in Yerushalmi and the Gemara in Babli. The Gemara in Yerushalmi in Tainus, it says that if all the Jews kept one Shabbos, we'd be free, which is the source of the song from Mordechai and David. Just one Shabbos will all be free, right? That's the source. But then there's a Gemara in Shabbos in Bavli, which says 2 Shabboses, and then we'll be free, right? So what's going on? So the Nesivos Shalom gives a very novel approach to this. He says that there are, and he brings even a proof, because he says like this. He says that the fact that, what does it mean by 2 when it says it in Bavli? It means Shamar and Zachar, the 2 aspects of Shabbos, keeping and remembering, right? So therefore, that it is part of, staying away from the bad and doing the good, right? And, staying away from the bad meaning getting out of the property, the ownership of Sitra Achra, the dark side, right? And doing good to be able to go totally into the property of holiness, right? And together you have the actual perfection, the completion of Shabbos, right? Now, it says the Medrash says that Shema Tomar Laras Kamanino Sen Lechem Shabbos. Maybe someone will say that the reason why I am giving you Shabbos, maybe it's for bad, for something bad. So, question is, how could Shabbos be bad? What could be bad about it? So the Nesivos Shalom explains that the fact is that maybe when I'm bringing Shabbos, it's for the bad, meaning that only to take away the bad and not to do the good. So don't think that I'm giving you Shabbos only to take away the bad. I'm also giving you Shabbos because it's going to be good for you. It's not just that you should stop doing and you should feel like so constricted, the fact that I can't do the things that I do during the week. No, right? It's actually the opposite. I'm stopping myself from doing things to be able to really come to a connection with Hashem in such a way that I'm going to feel so much better than I feel any other day of the week. And that's the whole purpose of Shabbos. And Hashem is Baruch Hu, we should be zocha to have every Shabbos like that. And if we all do that, Sheikh will be here very soon.